And the worst of all are those so-called fact checkers, many of them with government contracts to silence dissidents. Never trust them. Never forget what they did. Many of them are still in power. Many of them still want to use that power over you. They're trying to silence you and censor you even now. Do not forget that. I saw this story today in various German media outlets. I'm going to quote from the Deutsche Welle, which is the German state broadcaster, like their version of the CBC. Here's their story. Just so you know, when I say BND, that's the German spy agency, sort of like Germany's CIA. So here's the story. COVID pandemic likely unleashed by lab mishap, Germany's BND. Germany's spy agency thinks an accident in a Chinese lab likely led to the COVID-19 pandemic, media saying. Evidence it collected allegedly indicates negligence at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. But that sort of hides the news, or as we say, it buries the lead, because it's not really news in 2025, 5 years after the crisis, to tell us this. What's actually the news here is not the facts about Wuhan. We already knew that. The news here is that the BND knew this 5 years ago and kept it secret. That is the news. Wouldn't you agree? Funny now, that's not in the headline. That's weird. It's very CBC-ish of them to hide that from the headline. I'll read some more. Germany's Foreign Intelligence Service, the BND, concluded that the outbreak of the worldwide coronavirus pandemic in 2020 could well have been triggered by an accident at a Chinese laboratory that does virus research, German media reported on Wednesday. According to reports in the German papers Süddeutsche Zeitung and Zeit, the BND based its conclusion on the analysis of material from the public domain and that it collected in the course of an investigation with the codename Saarema. The material, some of which came from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, located in the Chinese cities where the pandemic is believed to have started, indicated that there had been some risky research methods used there, compounded by breaches of public safety rules, the report said. The paper said there was evidence that Wuhan researchers carried out so-called gain-of-function experiments in which viruses occurring in nature are manipulated. Such research can cause changes in the way a virus causes illness, its transmissibility, and the types of hosts it can infect. There were also indications there had been numerous violations of safety regulations at the lab, according to the reports. So there it is. Gain of function. You know what that phrase means, right? It's when scientists on purpose try to mutate and weaponize viruses to make them worse, to make them into weapons, into deadlier than they are. Let me read some more. The BND reached its conclusions as early as 2020. The paper said, giving them a likelihood rating of 80% to 95%, but the assessment was kept from the public at the time. Yeah, you don't say. Now, you don't get any more certain than 80 to 95% about anything in life, do you? Especially about something complex like a pandemic. 80 to 95% certainty, and yet they kept this a secret for years. Not just a secret, the government said the opposite. So they knew the truth. They buried the truth, but that wasn't all they did. They said the lie, knowing it was a lie, and we're only finding out now that they knew it was a lie. We knew the truth years ago, didn't we? Now we're just finding out that the government knew the truth and lied to us and tried to gaslight us, as they say. Here's Deutsche Welle reporting that the FBI knew the truth too. They stopped keeping quiet about it in 2023, again, once the worst was over. And the CIA admitted the same thing this January. The CIA says lab leak most likely source of COVID outbreak, of course. But for years, not only were you mocked by every establishment journalist and denounced by every public health expert and politician, but you were positively banned from publishing online that COVID was a Chinese bioweapon. If you said that on YouTube, you would violate their community guidelines and you could have your video canceled, your whole account could be struck. Same in Facebook, same in every social media. You weren't even allowed, I remember my book, China Virus, it was suspended because it contradicted officials. What does that mean? If you said that this was a Chinese bioweapon, you would be positively silenced. Now, these German and American spy agencies are not quite saying that it was a bioweapon. They don't use that word, but they're saying it using other words. So they're saying it was a Chinese government lab that specialized in gain of function. That's a bioweapon. So for years, you were not just mocked for speaking the truth, but more than that, you were punished for saying the truth. And yet the government knew the whole time that it was true. That's the meaning of today's German news. Their spy agency knew within weeks. So never let them ever tell you what is true or not. Never let them have the conceit that they are the arbiters of truth or not, that they have moral superiority over you, that they're better at figuring out the world than you and your ability to divine what is true or not. And the worst of all are those so-called fact checkers, many of them with government contracts to silence dissidents. Never trust them. Never forget what they did. Many of them are still in power. Many of them still want to use that power over you. They're trying to silence you and censor you even now. Do not forget that. Oh, hi, it's Ezra Levant here in Toronto with an important message because we need your help. Independent journalism in Canada is under attack. Government censors, big tech deplatformers, and the dying legacy media are all working together to maintain exclusive control on the information you receive. They don't want you to hear other voices like ours, and they really don't want you to be informed and to think for yourself. That's why the work we do here at Rebel News is so important. Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money, and we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com.